We are starting soon.
Hello and welcome to the Album Book Club. This is way too loud.
Yeah, that is significantly louder now.
That might be all right. There we go. All right. Today we are taking a look at Pink Lemonade by Closure in Moscow. Okay, we sound good.
Yeah, can you bump me down a little bit more? A little bit more. There we go.
All right. New headphone setup. Sorry about that. But yeah, this was my suggestion for the wheel. This is, I think, the last one that I had back when we were doing the original wheel. So, finally getting to take a look at it.
Woo.
We're just going to jump right into our top three.
Yeah, let's go.
Carl's here.
Yeah, I'm alive. Hello.
Carl's here.
Carson is not.
Carson is not. Yeah.
He's in court right now. So my top three were Seeds of Gold, Pink Lemonade, and Neoprene Byzantine, I think.
Yeah, I had the Church of Technochrist, Neoprene Byzantine, and Pink Lemonade.
I have the song title that I don't even understand in Japanese, The Church of Technochrist, and Pink Lemonade.
I do believe that last track translates just to Pink Lemonade Japanese version, from what I could find.
Well, I just have a song with Japanese title in my notes. So
Yeah, both versions made your
Yeah.
top three.
All right, we ready to get into our bottom song?
Yeah.
I had Beck and Fire.
I had Beck and Fire.
Yeah, I bet you can guess what I had, because it's Back in Fire.
That was the definitive worst track.
I don't even think I hated it either. I don't think I really have that much beef with it.
Oh, I did. I hated it.
I can't remember. We'll get to it. All right, we ready to get started?
Mm-hmm.
Started with track 1, The Fool. I gave this one a 6 out of 10.
I gave this a 7.
I also gave this one a 7.
Intro plus, you know?
Yeah, so I have the first note is it's an intro. The rules ... Never mind.
I just wrote it was really bombastic. That's like a great word. It starts the album out in kind of a. I wrote strange, but I think eclectic is the right term. It's definitely a little bit of a. It gets you going. You know what you're gonna listen to. I just wish it was a little longer.
Yeah, my biggest thing is most of what you're getting into after this track. It does. Yeah, so I read the lyrics. I tried to figure out the story, and it took a Reddit essay to actually figure out that there was something. I did not read all of the Reddit essay, but there is some kind of story here. I think this is technically a concept album.
Yeah, I think this intro did a really good job of pretty much capturing both possibilities of what the album art gives you. It's either going to be this very calming and like nurturing, kind of electronic album, or just a weird in your face alternative mess. And it hit both in this intro. I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, I don't have anything. Sorry.
All right. Yeah,
Sorry, we just gave Carson answer time.
Yeah, we're leaving space for Carson. So yeah, moving on to Pink Lemonade. I gave the song an 8.5 out of 10.
I gave this one an 8.
I gave this one a 9.
Oh,
I mean, I can go if you want.
sure.
The first thing that I wrote down was, wow, it's rock now. And I think that's part of why I got such a high score, because it's really high energy. There's great fuzz tones in the guitar. And then it has one of my favorite things for a song to do, and it's just super ADHD and bounces around and changes a bunch. And I tend to love that.
Yeah, I loved the guitar tone, loved the bass tone on this. There is a couple of weird effects. There's a very heavy auto-tune on just the word around, I think, towards the end. Yeah, there's a lot of vocal effects, and not like a lot on the whole vocal track. There's a lot of differently used vocal tracks throughout this. I think it's a very interesting song.
Yeah, I've said it once. I'll say it again. Do not buy the new AirPods. They're junk. They ruined the mix of this album. You cannot hear the guitars one bit. But what you can hear is the terrible fry effect on one of the background vocals. It's going with the main line, and it just sounds horrible. But everything, like all the spacey effects, they're all great. You do have this... it's a rather horny outro, I would say. It did make me very mad, though, because I was expecting the next song to be set up in the style of the outro of this song, and it wasn't. But then they fixed it, so.
I have a note about that being its own song, but I'm pretty sure if they did that, it would lose points. So that's...
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I was trying to remember who I imagined when I heard this voice. It's one of the hipster demon chicks from the Patel fight in Scott Pilgrim. That's exactly what I hear when the voice comes on, which is so funny to me.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, other than that, there is like this really, it's a really common thing that's done in music where they just pull everything back, except for just drum and vocals, and they just kind of drive with it. And they did it rather well in this, because it didn't feel like they intentionally dropped everything back. Everything just kind of faded away, in almost just a way that's unexplainable. Like it just wasn't there, as if it almost never was. And then it was instantly there like it always was. And that's just rather mystifying to my brain.
I think the only other thing I had is that this song feels like a 3-act story with an like epilogue.
Yeah, it was a haul. This is what, was this 8 minutes?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I can stand a long track, but you do somewhere in the middle go, ooh, how much do I have left? And then about 30 seconds after that, you forget how much time you had left, and it just sucks you back in.
Yeah, we need to note it since Carson's not here to complain about the song length. He's usually the one that's the most offended. I don't know. It bounces around enough that I don't think I minded it so much.
Mm-hmm. This is one where I think Carson would have some problems with the length of some of these songs. I have it written on one of the songs. I don't know where, but it's like Carson's going to have a problem with this. But I think you're right. It bounces around enough that you don't really notice it half the time.
I think it almost drove me nuts. I'll kind of start talking about this now and get into it more later. It felt like Prog, but it wasn't Prog. It didn't go anywhere. It just progressively moved through the same thing. It was like, the homie pushing the stone up the hill, and then the second he gets to the top, it went right back down, and they just did it again.
Yeah, it meanders is the wrong word, but none of the concepts tie into each other very well. Is probably, and I don't mind that so much. It's kind of I don't know. It doesn't present itself as a cohesive thought very well.
It for 8 minutes, I expected it to start someplace and end somewhere else. I didn't expect to go in a giant circle.
So did it not do that?
I mean, the music itself, no. The song,
Yeah.
yes. So the music didn't end somewhere else, but the song did because it gave us that sample and then thus leading into the next track. But that's the concept of it.
We're also used to like prog rock and symphonic metal and that kind of stuff. You know, synthetic metal too, but
Stuff that gets all weird and bonkers and then ties back in and goes somewhere.
I will say that I don't think Apple Music does because Apple Music sucks. But some of the I know the essay with the lore was on like a prog rock Reddit space, so I think they do classify it as that.
it definitely makes sense in like I don't know. I always think of albums that are concept albums like listening to a movie, if that's the best way for your brain to process it. Listening to an audiobook or something. You know, it definitely comes across that way. But I still think it could have been a little more cohesive and tied together. It's very clear that sections were done at different times and then kind of pushed together. It's another one of those that if they pulled it off live, it'd be really cool to see because you would have to figure out those transitions in order to fix that.
I also think you see, I mean, we'll definitely get into it the more we get into it. It's just so many of their influences came out that at points it was egregious. And just being able to point out like very specific, like, oh, I know who this lick was played by 20 years ago. But it is nice to see something so new have such old pieces to pull from, and something that's pretty out of genre for what they try and pull off.
I don't know. It's interesting. Where are they from?
That is a good question. Hold on. Keep talking. I'll look it up.
Yeah, because their influences are.
It's gotta be somewhere like in southern United States, yeah.
But there's a lot of British influence too. Weirdly enough,
You're not gonna believe this.
was it like Kansas?
It's Australia.
Oh no, that actually makes
a lot of sense.
because not that I specifically wrote this, but now that you said it, I'm like, oh, this is like Curringbin. If it was like, I don't know, more insane and less groovy, but also groovy sometimes.
So it had a couple with them.
Yeah.
All right.
We ready to move on? Neoprene Byzantine, I think is how you say that.
It's neoprene. It's the fabric.
Neoprene. Oh.
Yep.
I have no idea what that is. I give this one an 8.
Gave it a 9.
I also gave this one an 8.
We're all really close. There's like 2 that are always the same, and then one that's different. It ended slow in the last track. It got fast again as soon as this one started. I don't know if this one had a transition, but a lot of these have seamless transitions.
This one was so good that I didn't like on Apple Music. I could not tell when it switched songs until I looked up.
I wrote them down most of the time, but I did not write this one down. But I thought there was one here.
Yeah, it was very good.
The biggest thing is this one is ADHD, the song. We're not even a minute in yet, and we've switched up the styles twice because it had to come in from the other style of the end of the last track, but then it switched it at least 2 more times before the minute mark. They also had the Drake noise in this song, and that instantly rose it up almost a full point.
Yeah, I complained. Well, I didn't complain. I wrote that it was either a plus or minus. Some people are going to like it. Some people are going to hate it. The way they did the hipster demon chick vocals leading in. But as much as I complained about it, then she sang and absolutely slayed. I mean, absolutely just phenomenal vocals. And I was like, okay, so why didn't you do that the whole time? And not that I do mind. Why did you do that instead of, or why couldn't you have sang instead of doing sexy voice? Like that just made me uncomfortable.
What sells?
Usually singing, but I mean, I guess it depends on where you have it.
Yeah. This was very, very all over the place, but it didn't try and go anywhere. And once I realized it wasn't going to, the last song. I just accepted that. Except the cadence stayed pretty like 80s rock vocally the whole time, and that was at least a nice route to just stick to while everything went a little far and then came back. There's just so much going on. It did surprise me how much, like, or how well she could sing. I was very surprised.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. I almost thought she was like a voice actor or something rather than a singer. And this is coming from someone that knows nothing about this band. So,
Let's see. I think I thought the end of the last song might have been like a sample from something, and then she started singing.
I thought it was a sample. And
I think I had it written at one point about like what sample they used, and then it wasn't. Oh yeah, this is also the one where I wrote the Carson note, and it had nothing to do with the length of the song. It was the stereo effect on the guitar at the end. All right, we ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Next up, we got Seeds of Gold. I gave this song a 10 out of 10.
I give this a 7.
I give this one an 8.
Here, I'll get this out of the way too.
Man.
I will talk due to the disclusion of Carson. But
Yeah, no, this one was my song of the day a while ago. I knew I was going to like this one. This song does not exactly go with the last 3 tracks that we just heard, but it is a banger. And as soon as we got here, my brain immediately said 9.5, and about halfway through the song, I couldn't think of a reason to drop it the half point. That's really how it got a 10.
Yeah, I just wrote that it reminded me of Muse, like a lot. This one was almost like a catchy, for them, this is a pop tune based on what we've heard the last 3 songs, but it's in a nice spot on the album because it kind of gives you a reprieve from, I won't say like the madness, just the weirdness of what was going on. And it gives you this very coherent, well-written song that I'm sure fits into the story. But it was almost a surprise to hear a normal song at this point in the album after what we just heard. But it was very good.
yeah, that was like my exact problems with it, where it didn't fit with anything we've heard up until this point. And on top of that, it felt like a mid-2000s pop song. And I was like, that's pretty cool and solid. But I think I was more into all of the cool stuff they were doing. And I was like, this is very much for radio. It's the single you put out for the Instagram ad reel, you know? And I get it. But it feels like a little bit of heart was left behind while this was recorded. And that did disappoint me.
I don't have anything.
Oh.
I was thinking, sorry.
All right, we ready to move on?
Sure.
I think this one is the Brahmatron song.
That sounds right.
All right, I gave this one 2 scores, actually. I gave this one a 7 and a 9.
Give this a 7.6, apparently.
I give this one a 7.5.
I believe that's what I was supposed to have written, but 0.6 is what came out.
So this was the track where I looked it up to make sure there wasn't a story here, and I found out there was indeed a story. So knowing that the weirdness of the second half of the song was on purpose made me rank it both as a song and as almost an experience. And the 9 is for the experience. It's the story. It's great. As a song, it's as wild and all over the place as the first couple songs in this album. And I think the second half hurt the first half, even though I like the second half more, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I don't know. This song, like, I wrote, you got 2 for 1 songs because the second half it really could be its own song. I don't know that it's necessarily strong enough to have gotten an awesome score as its own song, but I think the first half would have done a lot better on its own because it had a lot of early 2000s kind of British punk pop kind of stuff going, like whatever you'd call Arctic Monkeys. It had that vibe hard. It had a lot of groove. I loved how absolutely demolished the drums were in a couple spots. I mean, they were like Tame Impala levels of completely destroyed, but it worked.
Yeah. I think this was the song I first realized their guitar player and bass player actually had skill. They were just going nuts. Up until this point, I could not hear them in the mix hardly at all, other than just chords. And they were solid at chords, but they showed a lot of skill here. There was that fake out ending, and it just kind of like melted out the tape, and that was pretty solid and fun. And then it came back with a big fun shouting section. There's a breakdown quotes. It kind of sucked. And then the sample at the end just started breaking my headphones. It was making me mad. It just kept bumping down points every time my headphones were like.
We got anything else?
No, I was gonna make a point, but it's on the next song. So
Next up, we got Dinosaur Boss Battle. I gave this one a 7.5.
Give us a 7.
I gave this one an 8.5. And it's mostly because it had one of my favorite things. The middle of the song is just delay pedal oscillating madly, which I'm sure gave Logan all sorts of terrible memory.
I hated.
But no, I absolutely love that. I love the way it kind of came out of nothing and built up slowly. And this was one of the times they used the Fry kind of scorched earth vocals in the right way, keeping the energy up. Yeah, Logan disagrees, I can tell.
Yeah, I hated that. I thought it was like a bad carbon mic or a bad carbon filter. I hated most of this song. I don't know how it got such high of a score.
Because it's a banger. It's annoying at times.
I think most of the song is good, but everything I wrote notes about, which, I mean, there's a lot to this song, was just all the crappy parts about it.
Yeah, there aren't too many short songs on this album. There's plenty of time to have something you like in it.
Yeah.
I think this one's like 6.5. This is the one where I started reading the lore sheet with zero context as to how we got to this song, because I didn't read the first couple. But yeah, this one, it's a fun song. This is one of the few that I remembered like by name going into this album, and I think I liked a lot of the other ones better than this. It does a lot of the same things with a lot less of the weirdness, I think.
Yeah, this was to me another one where there was a lot of things going on that they tried to like pull together, and they didn't quite get all the way there. Especially when you give me a title like Dinosaur Boss Battle. Boss Battle, I mean, it's something I can root myself to, and I'm thinking like, okay, if this is stages of a boss battle, this is terrible. like there's just certain times where things just aren't what they should be, or where they should be for like the reference of at least just the title track or the title of the track, and then from my own perspective, the story we're seeing at that point, some decisions made weren't my favorite, but the song overall wasn't terrible.
I wrote the ending goes hard too. I think that's why it ended up with the score it did. Unless something like most of my scores are done after the song ends. So if a song has a good ending, I tend to remember that rather than something else that annoyed me. So
I do think that's what happened here, because I did write the solo at the end was bang.
I will say I don't think I loved the bit crusher on some of the vocals. It was kind of working overtime, which is weird because we've kind of had the opposite things happen. You said a bunch of negative things and gave it a higher score. I gave it I guess never mind. We did the same thing. We both gave it a decent score and said a bunch of things we didn't like about it.
I don't know. It was an interesting set of choices that seemed to work. I mean, based on how goofy the rest of the album is, it like made sense to have a normal-ish song with some goofy mixing choices.
Which number song is this? Does anybody have?
This is number 6.
6. All right. So there's like if you don't count the first song, it's like every 1 to 2 songs there's something kind of normal happening so far. I don't believe that goes on for the rest of it.
That's out the window now.
Say that falls off right about here, but
so it's like the middle of the song becomes the weirdness again.
Mm-hmm.
So the only one so far that's been like a normal song has been Seeds of Gold.
Yeah.
I don't know, half of Neoprene Byzantine is, but it's like...
Yeah, that one definitely makes up for the first half being normal.
Yeah, you get like half of a normal song and then just insanity. And I think that's cool. It's just, it might be a lot for some people.
Mm-hmm.
This is definitely an album best consumed on drugs.
I was just going to say loud, but...
That too. Both.
That's valid, yeah.
Legal
All right.
drugs.
We ready to get to the one that I am pretty sure I can't say?
Yeah.
All right, we got Mauer, Bauer, Trower, Kite, maybe.
Sure. That's close
Sure.
enough.
I give this one a 6.5.
I give this one a 6.5.
I give this one an 8 3/4. I liked this one a lot. There's a vibraphone, I think, which means I automatically like it a lot. There's a groove. It's funny. This one I liked, even though it was the slowdown. I think I needed a break.
That is valid.
And the guitar tone's really good. My biggest complaint, and it's not awful, it kind of fits the style. There's just a lot of reverb at a few spots that I felt like I was underwater.
See, I liked that part. What I didn't like is that it took 5 minutes to do anything interesting. That was my big issue with it, is it was kind of boring. And then I looked down, and when it started to get good, I was like, how have we been listening to this song for 5 full minutes? And we're not done yet. But, yeah, it's really just, it's the slow song. I didn't have anything really against it. I did read that the church bells are relevant to the story, like one at the end, which is cool. I read they were like, the church bells is really important to this part of the story, and I made it to the last second of this 7-minute song. I was like, oh, there it is.
I assume this was like the hero's journey, like like the fight was like a fight, and now this was like them having to recover and figure it out instead of celebrating.
Yeah, that's pretty close. These are the two that I actually wrote down, but I have no idea how we got to the dinosaur boss battle. But this is like the wake of the battle, and he's just like kind of figuring out what to do next because he's the only one left.
Yeah. It was very ethereal. Everything was very floaty. It was kind of an emo song too. It was very, very like sad and whiny, but it was a vibe. My biggest problem with it was all I could hear were drums and vocals on this song the entire time. And that's real great, but it sounds like I missed a church bell and a bunch of other things.
Oh, it's one church bell in the last 2 seconds of the song.
Oh, it sounds like I did not miss the church bell.
No, I think it transitions into, it is the transition into the next song.
Oh, great song.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know. If it's got a plot, I just assume it's Romeo and Juliet, but clearly that doesn't fit here.
Usually that is the concept album pick.
If it is, there's a lot more steps here than in that story.
Yeah, I don't know.
This was a full musical recreation of Avengers Endgame.
I would believe it.
There's a lot less snaps than I anticipated.
We ready to get into the next song?
Yeah.
Church of the Techno Christ. I gave it a 7.75.
Give this a 9.
I gave this one a 9 plus, just because I gave something else a 9. I wanted this to be slightly above it.
Who wants it?
I just wrote it's got another long build, but once it finally hits, it finally hits. And that all the musicians are just going ham this track, which is what I think like nailed the Southern rock thing, because this like 100% sounded like an Allman Brothers track for me. It may be a little more modern than that, but it's just the way they were all kind of like going at it. And I think it's in like 6/8 or 12/8, which is another like trope. But it wasn't like a blues jam, so that's what made me think it was some sort of like Southern rock, jam rock kind of thing.
Yeah. We had the blues song earlier, and there's one coming up too. But this one, it had a perfect transition, like we were just saying, with the bell. It's a fun song. It's also got a sick name. That was the biggest thing I took away from it, is that it's got a fun groove. It is a great just energy throughout this song.
Actually,
what do you got?
I was gonna say the name was so long I had to slam a bunch of the letters together in Techno Christ, so it's just a blur on my page so that I could get the rating in.
I did have one issue with this song, and during the robot break towards the end, they needed to turn those vocals up a little bit. If I wasn't reading the lyrics, I had no shot of knowing what that robot was saying.
Jeez, way to leave me notes, guys. Yeah, everything goes. Jeez, everything goes hard. There is a nice chant towards the end. We haven't mentioned that yet. I did like that.
True.
And the actual vocal cadence and attack itself would give me an asthma attack trying to sing. It's a very like breathy, like staccato approach, and that's just not for me. Can't do it.
Fair enough. We ready to get into the worst track?
The definitive worst track, yeah.
All right, Beck and Fire. I gave this song a 5.5.
I gave it a 4.
I gave it a 6. I can get this out of the way if you guys want, because I really don't have anything other than I didn't love the vocals.
My first note, Sleep Token vocals. There's almost a 2-minute intro on this song. It is flying dangerously close to interlude territory. Sure, it's probably relevant to the story, and I like the cool ethereal synths, but that's really all this song does for me.
Yeah, so I crashed out.
Uh-oh.
Oh, gosh. There's like a very nice string part. It's very chill. It's very calming for 2 minutes. And then the world's worst vocals I've ever heard hit my ears for the next, I don't even remember how long, 3 minutes or something?
Something like that. It took 2 to get there, so.
Yeah, this was a decently long track. If not, it felt like I was in purgatory every time I heard the words.
I didn't think this one was that long.
It was awful.
Let me check it.
I wrote boo with at least 26 O's.
It is 4 minutes and 2 seconds.
All right, so for 2 minutes, I had to listen to the worst music after I just had this nice calming, I'm out of crazy acid land.
I thought you were referring to the last song as
No,
calming.
the beginning. They gave me what I wanted, and then they decided to set the vocal track on fire, and gosh, I'm not putting it out with a fire extinguisher. I'm just walking away, bro. Burn up. Terrible.
Did you know you actually have to blow out flaming drinks before you drink them? Neat fact. A lot of people don't know that. I just felt like since you said the vocals were on fire, I thought that that was the right time for that PSA.
How else am I supposed to burp fire?
You shouldn't. I'm just telling you, like burns, internal burns are pretty bad.
Yeah, but they look gnarlier.
Whatever. If you can see your insides, kudos.
You can't?
All right. Well.
All right. We want to move on, or do we have more fire discussion?
No, I thought that was an important PSA.
I like fire. Fire's pretty cool. Pretty chill, you know.
What about the fire emoji?
The fire emoji is a very divisive emoji that has, on multiple occasions, torn apart the album book club.
That's why Steven's not here right now.
The best fire will always be fire sauce, though.
From Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Diablo sauce?
I like Diablo, but I tend to like fire better.
Really?
I put two fire packs and one Diablo pack on every taco.
That's a lot of sauce.
Yeah, none of it has
I
enough
use
flavor.
like half of a sauce.
No, I can literally drink Diablo. It's not like
It's not even the heat thing. It's just I don't like messy food.
It's valid.
then you shouldn't get Taco Bell. Just gonna.
Oh, I
Also
don't
valid.
get Taco Bell much anymore other than for like a Baja Blast. But now that that's in stores, I'll have to go to Taco Bell.
I mean, fire was like what made human civilization. So I guess I shouldn't say that. You know, I mean, a list of like important things. It's like fire and the wheel. You know, there's like a handful of things. Like,
yeah, Pac-Man.
like you combine the fire and the wheel to get the Industrial Revolution, and that's how we end up where we are now.
With the fire
Those two
wheel.
things alone.
Yeah,
The
that's all you
fire
need.
wheel revolution.
Yep.
That could have been the next track on this album.
Instead, it was named after a TV show filmed in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Starring Henry Winkler.
Yeah. Neat fact: there's actually a statue called the Bronze Fawns in Milwaukee. There's a picture of me with it. It's just a bronze statue of Henry Winkler just chilling on one of the rivers.
Can you drop that on the gram? That'd be your first and only Instagram post.
I'd have to find the picture of me with the bronze fawns, but I will try.
Just make the caption A.
Yeah, we'll see. See if I can find it.
All right, moving on to Happy Days. I gave the song an 8 out of 10.
I can give this song an 8 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.5. Just slightly better than you. Sorry.
We're back to the scheme of two similar,
Yeah.
or two same, one not.
Yeah, I believe this was the other blues rock song.
Yeah, this was
Oh.
like very ZZ Top.
Oh no, this was just Led Zeppelin. This was just like Led Zeppelin 2 in a song. My only problem with this song is it was super derivative. If this song didn't sound like classic rock radio, I think it would have gotten 10. I enjoyed it a lot. And I'm not saying I don't enjoy classic rock radio. I'm just saying it doesn't belong here.
That's fair. It's got a pretty clean transition. Switches up pretty much from the last track, but after how we felt about that, I think we were all ready for something else.
That's true. This does have a killer opening guitar riff. I
Mhm.
think that's part of why it scored a little higher.
I like the guitar solo later too, but
Yeah,
I'll wait for Logan to tell me that I'm wrong.
no, it's fine. If the band weren't so good, this song would be terrible because the vocals do not work with this track. They are. I think it's just the singer is not meant to be doing like a blues rock esque like song, and that's fine because they're performing their proper genre the rest of the album. This one's just kind of like they wanted to do something different, and they made the vocals work as best they could. That's fine. But if the band were like slightly worse musicians, oh my gosh, would this be unlistenably bad?
I'm going to take back what I said. It belongs here. This whole album's a fever dream.
That is
You should just move on.
I do think the story of this is 100% just like an acid trip, and then they come down from it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's some kind of battle, but other than that, I can't figure it out. There may be a dinosaur marrying a robot, or dinosaurs get robot enhancements and marry each other.
Well, that song is about them taking the technology to rise up against the people, but
Oh, so mechanized dinosaurs kill everyone.
yeah, they like don't like how the people took over and put their tech everywhere, so they took the tech and took over.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's the only one I read.
Also, this is definitely the last story track, right?
I don't know.
I actually, now that I think
disagree with that. I think.
now that I think about it, I think the next track is the sign that the technology won.
I was gonna say, if there wasn't a like 2-minute outro that was just story stuff, I would probably agree with you, but
That's true.
I guess we'll get into Pink Lemonade Japanese version. I give this track an 8 out of 10.
I gave it a 7.
I just want a 10, but there's a caveat to that. I think on the album it is not a 10. I think it is a 10 if it is alone.
Is this not a fitting end to the fever dream that we just experienced?
You know, it reminds me of one of those like B movies that you feel like the whole plot is just phoned in and doesn't make any sense at all. And that, you know, yeah, in that movie, like them just randomly ending up in Japan at the end of a dinosaur robot war makes total sense. But like any of us that are actually paying any attention would be like, wait, what? I mean, I can't think of any of those movies right off the top of my head, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Sharknado.
That's not even Sharknado is like a A- movie. I'm talking like
Crazy.
That's a wild take. That's like a E+.
Yeah.
Tops.
bro, that movie's great.
Have you seen 5?
No, I just the first Sharknado and maybe the second one. What's the one where like they're not even anywhere near water?
I think that's the plot of all of them.
What? No, I thought the first one it's like the tornado goes over the water and gets the sharks and attacks the beach.
Oh, maybe I didn't watch the first one. Maybe I only saw the second one. The second one, they're in like the middle of a city
Yeah, that's
in
not,
like a hospital.
yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. But the first one was like, I mean, it's like cheesy, but the plot makes sense. It's actually a fairly good plot. That's why the movie took off. I think this is kind of the opposite of that. This is like you watch it and you go, how did that make a coherent movie? And then you think about it and you're like, that was not a coherent movie at all.
Oh, don't worry. We got one of those in the works.
Got a few of those in the works.
Most of them make sense. Just the one. Yeah, this song is a complete 180, but it does go hard. Like on its own, on this album, it is completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, it just it made me want to play Street Fighter. Darn it. And I haven't had that feeling since I was a wee lad.
Yeah, I think I wrote Nintendo Core.
I did almost like instantly write Hatsune Miku. And then I thought about the Miku stomp and how I refused to pay $800 for that thing. So
Yeah, I wish Core could get the licensing again.
If they re-released it, I'd pay like $150. There you go, Cork. You've got my $150 pre-selected for your bank account.
I'll tag them in the Monday, Wednesday reel.
Yes.
All right. Do we have anything else, or are we ready to move on to pacing?
I think we can start the pacing debate.
Yeah, I think we can go.
Yeah, you're right. This is going to be a debate, I think. I gave this pacing a 7 out of 10.
I gave it a 5.
I gave this one a 9. And I can explain it just because it's a fever dream, and the album is a fever dream, and the whole thing just makes sense because it's incoherent. It makes sense because it's like that's the idea, and like even though I didn't know what the story is, it clearly was telling a story, and I gave it probably a point of extra just because of how clean most of the transitions are. And
It's true.
I mean, I was working while I was listening to this on Apple Music, so it's like I didn't even catch a lot of the transitions. It would be like I'd be 2 minutes into a song, and I'd have to be like, oh crap, what did I just miss? And go back because it was just so smooth. That usually gets a point or a point and a half, and it makes sense as a story, I think. Now, does it necessarily make sense? No, but that's what I got.
Yeah, that's fair. For me, it's just you like what you said. Half the songs transition perfectly into each other. There's a couple of songs that are in a weird placement, I think, and I'm not counting the last track. I don't think that could go anywhere else. Genuinely, there's like one or two that I don't even know where you would move it. It's just they feel weird where they are, and it might be the slower ones are just a little bit out of place, but I don't know how to fix that either. So it might be an 8. I might argue to raise it. I'm still going to keep it a 7, but
Yeah. This just feels like a made-for-TV movie that's based off of a book with like a really expansive background. It just feels like we're missing something. There's a lot of work that these musicians, you can tell, want to do, and they're not doing. There's something that's just not going all the way through. It feels like they cut a lot of what people would consider like fatty details that I almost find myself wanting because I was only given the context. Please give me some of this background. Give me some extra meat so I have something to go and digest what I'm hearing instead of giving me this hour straight of just the story and just the kind of circular movement.
It even reminds me of, it's like if it was a TV movie, it would have been on Sci-Fi, but also it has this vibe that like it's a bunch of short films that 20 different directors made that are all 20 minutes long, and then you watch all of them and you just go, what? And then, but the story pieces together, completely different actors, completely different things. It's maybe not quite that bad, but it always reminds me of like trilogies where they don't have the money I don't know. My favorite one to talk about is Atlas Shrugged, because beliefs or not, the book is about capitalism and why it doesn't work, but the movies are really funny because you have one movie that was made by one set of people, and then a second movie that was made by a completely different set of people, and a third movie that was made completely by just opposite set of people. And it's almost like that level of weird. Yeah, the story makes sense, but it gets really jarring sometimes. I don't know. I don't think anything I said made any sense just now. I feel like we all have become dumber from having listened to it.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just there were a lot of times where I feel like it lost me and it was trying its hardest to pull me back in. And then eventually I was like, all right, I'll come back. But it's just something about just like some of the songs where it's like sections would get so far out there that I was like, I can't look at this. I can't listen to everything. Like it scared me. Like scared isn't the right word, but it overwhelmed me, I suppose. And I think that's what the story's supposed to be, but I don't know.
I'll send you the lore sheet after.
I may need to read the Reddit essay.
I don't know. Maybe you just have to get more into Australian culture.
And that's the thing. I think also, I mean, we've talked about it many a time, where it's when you have a story, you may just sacrifice the flow for the story anyway. What was the last one we had that did that? I don't even remember. And that exact comment was made about something.
Let me look, see if I can
in recent time.
Was it See You Space Cowboy? Or the Greatest Generation? I think both of those had loose stories.
It may have been them, or it may have been, now that I'm thinking about it, Will Wood, because we were trying to figure out if Will Wood was a story or not. And I was like, well, I know you can just sacrifice X, Y, and Z for X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the name of the game.
My point was, like, I probably watch a fair amount of, like, Australian content, because it's kind of an interesting, it's like British humor if it was more chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a lot of the stuff is similar to the kind of, like, I don't even know how to explain it. The randomness of almost like sketch comedy going on at certain points during this album. And then there's always a very Japanese tie because they're so close to Japan, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Weird how that works geographically, but they're actually fairly close to Japan. So there's a lot of Japanese culture that sneaks in. I don't know. It's weird. I didn't pick up that they were Australian, but as soon as you told me, I was like, oh, that makes sense. I don't know. It is. It's definitely artistic, and they did a lot to go out on the limb to make it as a project. The only thing I want to know is was it a serious thing or not? Is it like in jest, or do they seriously think this is what it is? It's got to be the first. It's got to be like slightly ribbing, slightly kidding storyline.
I would assume that it's at least partially that. There might be a story there, but it's not shown enough, I feel like, for them to be like, this is super serious story. Also with the last track, I don't think it's the most serious.
I don't think you could ever
story.
have a song called Dinosaur Boss Battle
That too.
and take yourself at 100% seriousness.
I guess that's fair. There's also some songs in here that 100% could be good for radio play.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even with some of the weirdness going on in them. I don't know. It was just an interesting combination of all that stuff. And I thought, given everything it is, the puzzle pieces seemed to fit very well. You know, we talk about, there's tracks I'd move around here, there's tracks I'd move around there. I don't know that any of it makes more sense any other way.
I think, honestly, it's either give me more or give me less. Give me a, frankly, like 40-minute version of this album and trim out a lot of just the fatty pieces of what's there, or give me an extra 20 minutes of explorative music, and I'll take either.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got the vibe that it's like, am I a man or am I a Muppet, but like done by a jam band? Like, what a weird, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know how to make that make more sense.
That has been referenced twice in the last like month.
If I had 2 nickels.
Trying to think if it was 3 or not. I know one was during a video shoot, but there might have been one during the live.
The best part is when I get that mixed up with the musical he's writing and forgetting Sarah Marshall.
All right.
Gosh, that's a deep cut in my brain.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We ready to get into album art?
Yeah.
I gave this album art a 9 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.
I also gave it a 9.
I can explain exactly why it's a 9. Never mind.
I
They
see the
fixed it on the
iguana.
vinyl, which is crazy because that was going to be my whole note. There is a sticker on the digital copy of this with the name and artist name.
Yeah.
And if they had saved that for the front sheet, or like the plastic shipping sheet for the vinyl, that would have been perfect. I did not realize
But that's exactly
that
what they did.
that the one behind me is a 10 out of 10. So that was my only note negative about it.
I wish the female vocalist was on it, if she's a member of the band.
That's my big
I don't
gripe.
believe she is.
Okay.
Even though she's not, she to me is a prevalent piece of this project. Like, when I leave this, she's going to be a big part that sticks with me. So she should be on the cover somewhere, even if it's not like her, or like just reference to her character or something.
Is the band on the insert?
There is no insert.
Okay.
I do believe that is The Fool from the story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that makes
I know the
sense.
band isn't on there, but
Or titular antagonist.
yeah.
That might have been the most riveting conversation we've had about album art yet.
Hey, we're trying. We're trying hard.
That one's always a flyby because that one's purely subjective.
Yeah, but sometimes we'll have arguments, and I had one for this. I didn't expect them to fix it long before I had that complaint.
This is also where we find out whether or not Carson's colorblind this week or not.
Most weeks, he is.
The green sticker up at the top. All right, we ready for music overall?
Mm-hmm.
I give this one an 8.5.
I gave it an 8.
I'm building tension. I give it a 9.
I did up my score. It was originally a 7.
I actually really liked this album. It's interesting because I always talk about this. It's like, what do you remember from the album? And all of the weirdness was there, but I feel like for the most part, it was not the significant parts of the album. The weird stuff was in the right amount, and it was at the beginning of the album, to where what I remember is a pretty solid jam rock album with just some slight weirdness going on, and a lot of satire, satirical comedy going on. A lot of, and a fairly interesting story, I guess, about witchcraft and dinosaurs and
Such.
yeah. I don't even know. I mean, I don't think Moscow is in Russia, or Moscow is in Russia. I don't think Moscow is in Australia. Moscow's definitely in Russia. But
They airdrop it to Australia for a day.
I don't know. There's so much lore here. I feel like I'm missing.
That is true. I feel like my score would go up if I actually sat down and read the whole Reddit essay. But yeah, I've always, since I found out about it, I've liked this album, and it's been just chaos the whole time. So I have fun every time I listen to it.
I've heard this album at least 4 times prior to the analyzing, and it's a great background album. I think it's great to just peek in when you want to listen and pay attention, and then duck back out and let it go to the background when you want to. It is by no means a bad album to analyze either. I think if I were to Deep Diaper,
Deep Diaper. That's a great band name. Just so you know.
Deep dive a little into the story, it would be a little bit better. I'm not sure though, because sometimes when you try and do too much, if I have to read that much, right? I mean, we've seen it with albums in the past year where we've had to read a whole document of way too much background to figure out what's happening in an hour of my time. And I don't want to spend an extra 30 minutes reading what I should have gathered in an hour and didn't. That's my big problem with a lot of concept albums is I don't get the concept.
Yeah, sometimes concept albums are... I'm trying to think of how to say this. The concept is so,
out there.
it's either avant-garde to the point where you can never figure it out, or it's just so snooty that, you're not good enough to know what the concept is. And I think I just appreciated that this was this kind of, lighthearted story that... And it's funny, coming off last week, the first thing I thought was this is some sort of crazy cartoon or some sort of just insane Netflix movie by Gravitas Ventures. It's it knows what it is. And between that and the amount of musicianship that's going on and the amount of production tricks they did and for the most part pulled off, and I mean, they spent a lot of time doing this. They had to have. I mean, there's no way, even if the band just went in and jammed for, a couple of the tracks, doing the tracks in the beginning would have taken some time to cut together, no matter what. So I just think that gives them a lot of props for being able to pull it off. And the fact that it is weird, but I still liked it, I think actually made it score higher than if it wasn't weird and I had liked it. I think it would have been an 8 if it wasn't goofy and they managed to do it. Goofy might not even be the right word. It's just slightly obtuse. Maybe that's the right word.
Yeah, this is for sure a great album. I do think it's one that probably most people will take 1 to 2 listens before they finally give up trying to get it and then just accept it and then get it. This is a Blade Runner situation, I do fear, where you gotta stop trying to want to like it and figure it out, and then you will.
No, you just pick the singles off this. Pick like Seeds of Gold and like
Pink Lemonade's a great single.
I don't know though, because Pink Lemonade's a little chaotic. So
Okay.
do like Seeds of Gold and like Church of the Technochrist and like do just like give yourself light exposure and then listen to the album, because if you listen to 2 or 3 tracks off of it and then the album, it's probably great. I think you'd get a better hold on it that way.
Yeah, it did take about halfway to kind of warm up to everything.
I guess this proves that yet again that I'm like the most avant-garde out of all of us. Not trying to say that in like a pretentious way, but
Let's say, here's the real words. Carl's the most pretentious out of all of us.
yeah, that's not no. I draw a line when it stops becoming music and is art instead. But because I've heard so much bad art pretending to be music, I can really appreciate when music gets kind of artsy. I think that's the best way to explain it.
That's so fair.
Coming from a background in jazz where, I've never been in this situation, but almost everyone that I've played with has been in a situation where they go somewhere and someone asks them to play like Ornette Coleman, and that is not something that like I can tolerate in a live situation. As much as I enjoy that, like 6 people can't be soloing on top of each other in different keys. I'm not about that atonal stuff, and so I probably go further out into the weird spectrum. So when something's slightly strange, I tend to give it extra points. I don't know. I guess that's the answer. I've learned a lot about myself today. The true album were the friends we made along the way.
All right. Think we're ready for our last spin of the season.
No, we're going to spin for the last one, too.
Oh, doing this one again.
Makes a funny noise.
Spin it again. That's
This is lovely, isn't it? Oh, we're just
Carson,
gonna
you're
keep
back up.
going.
Yep, we're gonna get it eventually. Nope.
Oh my!
Oh wow.
It's impressive that I've got those 2 exclusively.
There we go.
It's Carl.
No, I'm
That
next
is
week.
Carl is up.
Cool. It is Armistice Live, specifically the live version by Mute Math. Anyone that's going to listen to it before next week, I recommend you find the videos and watch them play, because they are some of the best stage performers I think I've ever seen.
Just realized I get to close out the season, don't I?
You do.
Oh heck yeah! Did I start out this season too?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't your album, but you hosted. I guess.
Yeah.
It was Jackson,
Heck yeah.
which is weird. I feel like we haven't been in season 3 for more than like a month, but also that episode feels like it was a year ago.
All right.
All right.
You got anything else?
Buy our merch. We sell that. Album Mug Club.
Yeah, I got my hat on.
Album Ad Club. I usually have my Album Hoodie Club hoodie on.
Yeah, don't forget to do all the YouTubey stuff. We really appreciate it. Hit subscribe, like, comment. Tell us.
Suggest us stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Send us music to listen to.
even if you just leave us a note that says "Have a great day, guys." Like we read all of them, and not like one of us reads all of them. We all read all of them, whether or not we respond. Just all that stuff helps a lot.
We try to respond. Sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it all depends. We're not going to go back and respond to something that's 4 years old, unless it's like a question.
Or it's really funny to respond 4 years later.
Yeah, if we're responding 4 years later, I was on purpose.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. See you next week.
Bye bye.